This is one of the most common team comps you will see in team games right now. Usually, one of these civs will go very greedy, doing either a 2TC or man or boom. This build I've got for you today is specifically designed to punish this type of greedy player. Do not try this against too aggressive civs. You will get completely destroyed. That said, I present to you the best ram rush build in the game. I'll give you two variations of this build, one risky and one safer. Then we'll look at which maps this build works best on. And finally, we'll break down which civs are good with and against this strategy. Let's get into it. Start by sending your 6 starting villagers to the ship nearest to your TC. Also, notice I killed 3 sheep with 1 villager each, and leave 1 alive. This will be important later. Next, send 2 villagers to gold. Your first villager will build the house and the mining camp. Sometimes, your second villager will finish mining 10 gold before your mining camp is completed. If this is the case, manually click on this villager to help construct the camp faster. Send 1 more villager to food. And now, the next 4 villagers will go to a nearby straggler tree, and then queue them back to the ship that is still alive. In this case, there's a straggler tree near our ship. But if all straggler trees spawn far away, like these two, click on the ship that's still alive and move it nearer to the trees that are being chopped down, so your villagers don't have to walk all the way back. When you have around 370 food, select all your ship villagers and send them to wood. When they drop off their food, you should have enough to age up. Finally, take a look at your gold mine. When you have mined exactly 100 gold, force drop with your 2 villagers and quickly age up with friends. Now let's take a look at scouting. Your scouts should ideally go straight towards your enemy base, so we can see which civilization is in front of you, and if there are any obvious weak spots we can hit with this rush, like a forward gold mine for example. After you click your age up, set your rally point to your nearest wood line. It will stay there for the rest of the build. As soon as you age up, build an archery range with a wood villager. You will queue archers from here non-stop. Also, build your blacksmith with another wood villager, and try to hide both buildings from any enemy scouts, so you can potentially catch them by surprise. When you're at 18 or 19 pop, build a house. And finally, when you have some archers near an enemy weak spot, start building 2 rams. The rest of the archers will arrive while you build them. With this variation, you will finish both rams at around 610. Pretty fast, but we can still do better. Also, do not forget to get your ranged damage and armor upgrades from your blacksmith as soon as you have the gold to do so. Now, let's take a look at the risky but faster variation. The build is exactly the same up until you click your age up. In this case, I saw the Ayubit scout here earlier in the game, so I know Abbasid is on the other side. On a real game, this would be our target, since they like to build multiple TCs. At this point, select one of your 7 wood villagers and send it across the map, to a point nearer to your enemy weak spot. In this case, I identify a stealth forest near the Abbasid stone, so I build my archery range here and leave my villager chopping wood. From here on, we do exactly the same as before, but this time your archers will arrive immediately, and you will be able to build your rams faster. I only recommend doing this version if you're 100% sure your enemy is going for greedy play, and that you are confident you can hide your proxy villager well. Now, let's take a look at the current map pool and figure out which maps are best for this strat. Dry Arabia is very open, and the rush distance is not very long either. Solid choice. Enlightened Horizon is one of the best maps for this, due to its very short rush distance. Some players even go Dark Age barracks to contest wolves and the points of interest. But that's actually good for you. You will have a ton of archers in their base very quickly, and these will kill those spearmen really quickly. Gorge isn't great. The rush distance is short, but the spawn often gives poor angles for attack. Plus, the greedy player is usually in the back, making it really hard to hit. Only go for this build if the front player is being greedy, which is very rare. Lipany isn't as open as Dry Arabia, but it's still viable. Spawns are into punishing, so you can absolutely run this strategy here. Prairie works well, especially since you can harass gold or wood lines with archers while you're building your rams. The only downside is that most players will actually avoid greedy builds here due to the limited wood in the map. The Danube River has very huge distances between players. Some go for docks, so you could ram rush their dock and then pivot to their base. But it's risky. I'm skeptical about using this build here. Shadow Lake should be banned because it's a water map. In Volcanic Island, players very commonly start with a dock, and the rush distance is very short. You could potentially ram rush one of the players' dock, while your teammates go for fishing, to keep up with the other opponent. I haven't played this map much, but I believe this build could be good here. Wasteland you should ban, since the main bases are extremely closed off. The gold is within TC range, and the woodlines sometimes spawn in a way that is extremely hard for you to get a favorable angle. You can still try it, since this map is where greedy play is very common, but I do not advise it. Water lanes should also be banned. It's essentially two 1v1s, and this strategy is not designed for solo play. You definitely need cavalry support for your archers. I have found the best Civ pairings for this build are Knights Templar plus French or Knights Templar plus JD. You can also pair KT with Civs like Ayuvits for Camel Raiders, or even another Knights Templar going full Chevaliers. If you don't want to run KT for the ram rushes, you can swap in other Civs that build rams really quickly. Abbasid with the military wing doesn't need a blacksmith or siege engineering, so that's a huge time saver. And HRE with Mindwork already has a blacksmith with reduced tech costs, making it very efficient, and their economy is already very good. Now let's explore how this strategy plays out across 4 games, and we will analyze how different maps and matchups affect this strategy. In the first game, the map is Gorge, and we're playing as Knights Templar and Ayuvits, against an HRE and a Sushi player. The plan is that if at least one of them goes fast castle, then we can go forward with this strategy, and find a way to deny their gold. I see that the Sushi player is the one in front, and that there is a very exposed village and house on this side of their gold. I also see that the HRE player has many villagers on gold, so I know he's going for a fast castle. Knowing this, I proxy my archery range near this weak point, and leave my villager in this woodline. My Ayuvid teammate goes for feudal dervishes, to help heal back the damage we will inevitably receive from TC fire, and plans to go horsemen instead of camel raiders, since they do not have any cavalry civs. It's 550 and my first ram is starting to deal damage on this house. From here on out, my plan is to deny this gold mine, so the HRE player cannot get any gold units. And in the meantime, I'll want to destroy as many houses as I can. Now, the HRE player is going for a panic Bargrave. I assume he wants to produce men-at-arms to deal with this rush, but without his gold mine he will not be able to do so. We don't do it in this game, but make sure your cavalry teammates goes around the enemy bases, looking for other exposed resources. For example, if this HRE player decides to leave this mine and mine gold elsewhere, we could have had a horseman there waiting for him. Remember to always garrison your archers in rams, and pop them out to kill villagers whenever you can. With this much economic damage, we decide it's time to attack the Sushi player, with an overwhelming amount of army and siege rams. And this is the final nail in the coffin for our first opponents. In the second game, we tried Knights Templar plus Ayubids once more. We are going against English and OOTD. Like in the last game, I suspected the OOTD might want to go for fast castle. The plan is to go for this strategy if I spot too many gold villagers, or if I see the English going for stone, meaning he would go for a second TC. In this case, the OOTD's gold is very exposed, so I decide to proxy my archery range near this weak spot. At this point, my teammate's scout spotted the enemy scout, which saw my villager walking over to his base. This triggered an immediate towered response. This might be bad for me if I was only going for archers, but because I am going for a ram rush, this tower will pose no issue for me. We also spotted that the English player is going for a council hall, so we'll most likely stay in feudal. Now, when going up against HRE and OOTD, you have to be aware of the extra vision their towers provide. Having this in mind, as soon as I spot this tower with my archer, I go back behind this wood line and start building my rams out of sight. This will surely catch my opponent by surprise, because towers cannot see through wood lines. He cannot spot my rams being built right in front of his base. As soon as both my rams are done, I send them towards the OOTD's gold, taking him by surprise. Because he built his houses forward, he definitely did not expect this ram rush. Now, with no units and only a few longbows from the English player to defend, he has no way of defending his landmark and his villagers. I use the ram garrison to protect my archers from his TC and pop them out whenever their units or villagers come close. At this point, the OTD has reached castle with Wargrave, but he has already lost too much. From now on, this player is miles behind in economy, and even though he's castle, he will not be able to produce enough units to kill our army. We decided to move on to the English's base, and caught him being greedy, going for a defensive white tower. He too loses dozens of villagers, and from here on out we win the game due to the large amount of damage we did with the ram rush. Now we move on to the third game, where we got matched up against two Conqueror 3 players, even though my teammate is Plat and I'm Diamond 3 in team games. This time I'm playing JD and my teammate is trying out the build with Knights Templar. We're up against an HRE and a French player. In Enlightened Horizon, always scout towards the sacred sites in this area of the map. That's where most of the sheep are. If we look at HRE's base, we can see he decided to go for Dark Age barracks. This is because he wants to go for the Wolf's Den, which rewards you with 150 gold when you burn them. That will be a pretty big boost for him if he decides to go for Fast Castle. We decide to ignore the Dark Age, however, since he would have invested a lot in Spearmen, which will be countered by our Templar archers and JD archer as well. I decide to go for Professional Scouts, which in this map I don't think it's very good, since besides the first deer pack, the others are extremely far away from our base. My teammate decides to add a barracks in addition to the archery range, so we can have more ways to deal with the French Knights. This will mean the ram push will be very delayed, but we will at least be able to deny the HRE's gold with units. We decide to attack this section of their base, since it allows us to go for either opponent. At first I use JD to harass as much as I can, because the HRE went Dark Age barracks, he has nothing to defend this, and French cannot help either because of my own knights and my KT's spearmen. So now that the gold is denied, we decide to go for the French's production. However, because the rams were pretty late, French has a lot of knights already to defend this. We did not manage to take his school of cavalry, but his knights were all pretty banged up from defending. This will later be very important. In the meantime, HRE gets to castle and transfers a bunch of villagers to an outside gold. Now, during all of this fighting, I catch up to the French knights, and his are all pretty low, which means I can go past this point and harass his exposed resources. He did not go for Professional Scouts, so this is the only food and gold he has left. In the front, my KT is pushed back by the HRE, but it does not matter, the damage has already been done. Now, my knights have full control of this area. I can now proceed to harass the HRE's food as well, and place my knights in a spot where I can easily block both of them from getting out of their base. Because most of the knights from French are gone, they need both armies here. Otherwise, my knights would overrun their economy. Also, because we've been fighting all of this time, JD gets to level 3 at 12 minutes into the game, which is pretty fast. Because I didn't scout this area, I did not suspect the HRE would be mining right there, behind my knights. If I had seen this, the game would have been over much earlier. Anyways, I H up behind this, and upgrade my units as well as my Temper teammate. Eventually, because we have much better economy, we overrun their base from multiple angles, and our bigger and better army finishes the job in the end. Now, for the last game we got a 3 vs 3 in Enlightened Horizon. I'm playing as KT again, with a Mongol and French as my teammates, going up against an OTD, a KT, and a Lancaster. The plan here is simple. At least one of them will go greedy, most likely the OTD trying to fast castle, or the Lancaster going for multiple manors. In any case, I decide to build my archery range in the middle, so I can have easy access to all 3 enemy bases. Because we didn't scout properly, at this point we don't really know what they're up to. So I decide to produce my archers without sending them across, in case there are any horsemen or chevaliers from a KT out there. I also delay my siege engineering timing, because we didn't really know if they were actually going greedy. Once I scout the OTD is going for a greedy fast castle, I immediately ping it and send my archers over there. Now that this gold is denied, we scout the Lancaster is going for a manor boom. This will be an easy target to ram, so I head there and start building my rams. Because there are more than 3 manors in a Lancaster castle, I go for 3 rams and let my teammates know they can go ahead and harass the OTD and KT players with their cavalry. So this way, their units are stuck dealing with them and can't come help the Lancaster player. Now, all of these manors are easily brought down by my rams, and any nearby villagers will get shot down by the garrisoned archers. Now that I've pretty much cleared out 50% of the Lancaster's economy, we decide to send all of our armies to deal with the OTD. Because of his greed to get to castle, he has almost no units, and the units from his teammates are no match for our 3 armies. Eventually, we got a pretty comfortable win. And that's it. Just as a reminder, I'll leave these important key points about this build here. Now, go ahead and have fun ramming greedy players. If you liked the video, give it a thumbs up and subscribe for more. And let me know if there's any other builds you would like to see on this channel down in the comments. Thanks again, and see you in the next one.